My name is Jason Bailey. I am a principal architect and owner of TMS Architects and Interiors in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We were approached by the client. They were the ones who brought the concept of incorporate timber into the project. So they had an existing camp already on the property, had some exposed timber framing, and they wanted to bring something similar into it. But as we began exploring the concepts of the design, the timber became more prevalent in the overall design. Where it went from just a couple rooms in the old camp that had some exposed ceiling beams, the new home was almost throughout, with the exception of the basement. Clients ask this a lot. When should certain people be brought on? And I always say as early as possible, general contractors included. So there's a process called schematic design, and that's when the pretty pictures are created, the floor plans, elevations, models, perspectives. And the sooner we can bring all of the experts in, the better informed the design can be. I know that elements as important as something like a timber frame needs to be highlighted. And so I want to have that early discussion as soon as possible. It helps with not only the design, but it also helps with the contractor comments and suggestions and how they're going to do their scope by having physically building it, but also with pricing it out so that all these important pillars of the project, such as design, cost, and timeline, can all be balanced really well throughout the project. So the way that Canadian Timber Frame can help with the overall design intent is they understand how timber frame works. They use it all the time. They're experienced in implementing it throughout projects. And so, when we enter a project, we can lean on Canadian Timber Frame to provide some very interesting concepts if I need them. They're not afraid to speak up and say, I think we can explore this a little bit more. And I'll give you an example of that on this particular project. I was personally struggling with an architectural feature in one part of the house, and it was brought to my attention from Canadian Timber Frame that you could do a little bit more with it if they had the freedom to make some adjustments. And I said, go for it. I wanted to see what you could come up with. And I loved the concept that you came up with for this particular roof element, and we went forward with it. Client loved it, and we liked the results. So I think relying on someone like Canadian Timber Frame who has the background and the knowledge of knowing what architecture looks like and how timber frame can be incorporated into it certainly is a positive. We've integrated so much of our workflow into the 3D world of design that it almost feels odd to not can be in it. We use Revit, which is an Autodesk system that essentially is a 3D based CAD software. And so what happens is we'll create our design, which is 3D based in this model, and we'll share it with Canadian Timber Frame. And then they'll have their design either based on elements that we've incorporated into the model, or we provide maybe some imagery or some sketches that say this is the direction we want, and then we can let your team develop it at a higher level, and that goes into your modeling software. So then the modeling software that you use will create its own elements or proprietary to your need, but then you can share it with us. So then it becomes an element that we drop back into our model on our side, and it kind of gets locked in, and we can see if there's any conflicts and if things are working nicely, if we have some comments, and we can go back and forth that way, and we can mark things up. So the process is pretty similar to how we'd work with some of our other consultants. If we have a structural engineer, they're putting in steel beams and framing materials that we can then collaborate within our architectural file. Same with their MEP consultant. They have ductworks and piping. And if we can bring all of those people together, all in the model, it certainly makes our job a lot easier to coordinate because we don't want to see some of those elements. We want to see the beautiful timber. We want to see the beautiful architecture, but not see a ductwork popping out of a wall. So if we can correct those things, it certainly makes it a nicer way of handling the project. But we pride ourselves on that. It's important because the clients that come to us have a high level of expectation because their projects are high level. So we want to practice our architecture and provide drawings of that same level. And happy to say that our ability to provide that to you and then have you reciprocate the same level of detail back to us is amazing. We really appreciate you being able to step up and provide us with that level of service. From my perspective as an architect, the end result is what everybody remembers. They don't care if there was a supply delay or if there was an issue with the design collaboration or if our Revit file crashed. Nobody cares about that. They care about the project at the very end. If the client looks at that home and says, man, you nailed it, that's what's important to me. If the project comes together and feels natural, like it was meant to be there, and clients really think that that home has been there for years and years and years, and at the end of the day are very proud of what they've been able to accomplish, to me, that's a sign of success for a project.